Welcome to Golden Glory. I'm Miles Eversley. Thanks for joining us. Our National Senior Games culminated yesterday, May 20th, with the second day of track and field events at the Usain Bolt Sports Complex. I'm sure that our athletes and spectators alike fully enjoyed this occasion, in addition to the many sporting events hosted this year. Many experienced the excitement of the Games, including Minister of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs, the Honourable Kirk Humphrey. He was delighted to share his thoughts on the 20th hosting of our National Senior Games.
First of all, I want to thank all the organizers. I want to thank all the athletes. You know, this year's Games, I've been around for a long time. So when Minister Lashley at the time was conceptualizing the Games, I was just tag along. So I've seen the evolution of the Games. And I think this year's Games are very fantastic. We had 235 athletes registered. Last year we had 219. We lost 2 years to COVID, as you know. So these are our comeback years. You can tell from the excitement that people are excited about what's happening here. We have about 4 other countries participating. The CEO of the Huntsman's Games, he's here to watch our Games as well. And I think the support has been fairly overwhelming, so I'm very satisfied with the Games this year. This is all part of a bigger plan. You know, Barbados is an aged society. And I keep saying, unless we start doing things and thinking about ourselves as active agents in our own lives, then this idea that you get 40 or 50 and you live on a couch, you know, we have to change that. So in terms of putting this whole philosophy of active aging together and having people who could be models and represent it, definitely. I'm seeing more athletes out. I want to have more people from the communities though, because the evolution of the Games has meant that people have gotten very serious, very competitive, which is good. But I also want to encourage ordinary Barbadians to get involved in the Games and to come out. But I also feel that this is part of my message to Barbados, that we can age actively, that it can be fun, that you can have good mental health while doing it, you can be independent and have secure living.
Minister Humphrey noted the significance of active aging considering our aging population.
We have to be very honest about Barbadian society. Barbados has now one of the most aged societies in the world. The average Barbadian is about 43, 44 years old. The trajectory on which we are treading now, the average Barbadian in the next few years will be 50 easily. By 2050, the average Barbadian could easily be 60. Think about that. And think about the changes that our entire society will have to make. You're going to have to change the way you do transportation. We're going to have to change our idea of healthcare. We're going to have to change how we do business. You have to recognize that seniors now are their own economy, whether as consumers or as producers, and that the contribution that they make to society should no longer be seen as just passive recipients of the government's welfare. And so if you understand that mindset change, then the whole society must change. And regrettably, Barbadians are not having as many children as they used to have. I'm not getting into the conversation about whether they should or that they shouldn't. But I do know that it means that if we continue to have older persons, less younger people, and the older persons are living longer, then the space in terms of the amount of persons who are alive to support them is called the dependency ratio. That dependency ratio then becomes extremely high because you have a very small group supporting a very large group. And so it changes how we look at that society. Then those younger people, because they're doing so much, will then subject themselves to hypertension, diabetes, and so on, because of the pressure. And so that is why when I say that we have to start active aging early, I really mean it. Aging should not be a consideration when you're older. Aging has to be a consideration when you are young. Planning for it, planning for your health, planning for your finances, trying to maintain relationships, all those things. So the conversation I want to have is a dynamic, holistic conversation, and that's the kind of conversation we're having. That is where the younger people are here as well. But I also think we have to have a conversation around disabilities. As much as we have that conversation, we have to have a conversation around gender and the fact that, you know, a lot of the women who age are aging healthier in many cases than some of our men. And these are things that we need to talk about and put them on the table. But I do think that we can do it. I think we have the program now as part of our education reform to teach these things in school. I also want to reach families with our new families unit that we're working on, to reach families and do it in the families. And I think if all of us do our part, my brother, we're going to have a completely transformed Barbadian society. But the bottom line is that we cannot see older people as a burden. We have to understand that they are a resource. They are a resource, whether it is that we see them only because they would have contributed before. But if you see past that, they're also a resource because they still have a contribution to make. And the society has to make adaptations to be able to make sure we get the benefit of that.
Well, the Minister of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs made it a point to express words of appreciation to a number of individuals who played a role in making our National Senior Games successful over the years.
You know, in terms of these Senior Games and this journey, I couldn't possibly do an interview about the Senior Games and not thank Hamilton Lashley from the bottom of my heart for his mentorship that I got over the years. Hamilai was Minister of Social Transformation, which is essentially the same ministry. I had the opportunity to work with him here. I also had the opportunity to work with him in the communities. So a lot of what I am came directly from working there. So I want to thank him for his mentorship. I want to thank that whole brigade from the beginning, including Royal Clark, that whole crew, you know, for conceptualizing it. And then, of course, I want to thank the government, my government that I'm part of now. And I want to thank the Prime Minister for her support. We have a significant amount of resources for it. And I also want to thank all the other governments because nobody has turned their backs on these Senior Games. And lastly, I really want to thank the athletes who come out every year and make these Senior Games amazing.
And thank you, Minister Humphrey. Now, our programs have focused on individuals whose names you have become familiar with since the first hosting of our National Senior Games in 2022. Our guests have all over the years exemplified dedication, perseverance, resilience, and of course, a passion for athletics and active aging. This episode's guests are indeed no different. The first of whom is
Audrey Cox from Barbados. She is in this one. That's a 200-meter dash for women 55 to 60.
My introduction to athletics was at my secondary school, the Allen School in St. Andrew, where I participate in athletics and also on netball. I was valedictorian on many times at the Allen School, but we went down to Kesda over to go against the big guns, the Queen's College, etc., etc. We were never able to come first or second. We were always like fourth or fifth. I guess my legs were too short at that time, and I ran against like Frida Nichols and St. John, Beverly Marshall for St. Michael, quite a few of those top athletes. But we weren't left behind. We were just up in there, but we could not get into the first and second position. So every year we try. At that time, you know, like the athletics is coming up and you will go and train on your own. Nobody there to tell you how to move out the blocks. But as time moves on for the alley, they now got a real good program, right, in athletics. So in the 70s, I played for Bell Point Plains Sports Club in netball. And then I went on to Bristol Rangers at night at YMPC. And then Mr. Archer from Dover Trotters, he saw me and he asked me to come over to Dover Trotters to be a center player. And I went over, and in there I represent Barbados in netball at the center where it at. So in the 70s, it was really competitive. We had Marva Harris Seeley, she was from Hotspur, and then we had like Maureen Withers, Born Now, all those. And we had a few girls from Dover Trotters, like Betty Grant and Maxine Devonish, they were a defense player. And Tel McKay, she was a shooter. And we went on to represent Barbados in Grenada and St. Lucia, right, in the 70s. In St. Lucia, they didn't like us at all, the Barbie. And they put some mangoes at us, mango seeds, etc. We had a rough time in St. Lucia here. And they pushed us about, everything, man. They were really hard on us, the Barbadian netballers. But we persevered, we beat them, you know. And then I went on in 1973 to play field hockey for Texas and then Maple. It was always Maple and Empire Rivalry at that time. But this one Saturday I was training at Maple, and a friend of mine named Hazel Barker, she works at National Sports Council, and she told me, Audrey, they have senior games going on this Saturday. Come on, let me have bring a basket, and you know. I said, Hazel, if it's anything that I'm going to watch, I'm going to be playing, I'm going to be running. So I left training at Maple that Saturday morning, and I went straight up at the stadium to run the athletic track, right? And that year, I was the overall champion in my division. In the first year, we had massive crowds watching the senior games. The athletes were, some ladies came in skirts and hats, and that's all. The hats drop off, they step back to take it up, and they run again. It was a lot of fun in those days. And then 2004, it get a little more competitive. It started as a fun thing, and but I was serious. I was always serious at my sports. I remember Thornhill, Achille Thornhill. He said, "There goes Audrey Cox, Flojo for Barbados. You can't catch her today, tomorrow, or no anything else," because I was competitive. And I see I exert the other day with it. I running and I'm in front and everybody to the back. It was something else. But my family, we are sports persons, as you know. The audience, the patrons, they enjoy those games. Because you see people walking and people running and people in the big skirts and hats on the head, the hat drop off, as I told you. And they had a ball. Barbados and Utah. It was like 5 of us that went on to Utah to represent Barbados in those games. And then I got 4 gold medals and one bronze at that time. And in 50, 100, 200, and 400.
A proud Barbadian representing her flag abroad in senior athletics and promoting an active lifestyle at home. Audrey participated in numerous field events at this year's Senior Games, achieving gold in the 76 to 79 women's standing broad jump event and bronze in the javelin and cricket ball throw events. Congratulations, Audrey. Well, our next guest also participated in track and field events during this year's Games. Barbados Masters and Seniors Athletics Club member Mark Norville achieved gold in the 80 to 84 men's 50, 100, 200 and 400 meter events. He explains his introduction to athletics.
Very long time ago, I started at Harrison College, and I would have represented the school from the time I was in 3rd form. But what I considered a crowning glory was my last year at school, 1963, the inter-school sports. It was yards in those days, so I won the 100 yards, the sprint, and came 3rd then in the 400 because I did the 1 and the 4. I never did the 2. My schoolmate Roland Mandeville, he was excellent 200 runner and 400 runner. So in those days they had no lanes. So you can plan the race where I would go and set the pace, hold the inside track, set the pace, and then move aside and let him come through on the inside. So by the time the others are trying to come through that space, I would close it back. And that meant that he was way ahead. And that's how we planned the last 400 that the 2 of us ran at Kensington Oval on a dirt track. We've come a long way now where we have the nice synthetic track. And I'm sure that well, we're running meters now instead of yards, but I'm sure that back then we would have had good times as well on a synthetic track. I also played a lot of football, and I played right wing, and that the speed then really helped get away from the opponents. So in those days you never really trained for athletics because it fell within the football season. And once you were fit then, you just ran, you know. There was nothing special in those days like now. You train and you train the start and you train the acceleration and then you train to maintain it, and nothing so fancy in those days. You just got up and ran. I was games captain of the house, and so I had to set an example. We had a games master of what was Dalton House, Set D, who was a gentleman by the name of Mr. Wellington, who went on to be headmaster at Foundation. And he inspired me a lot to you know, keep running and keep doing what I had to do to inspire the other members of the house. But my father also, he was very keen on sports, and he would always encourage me to keep on running, keep on playing football, hockey, whatever.
Did your athletic career continue after secondary school, Mark?
For a short while, because what happened is that I went to work in the airlines, BWIA in those days, and ended up working shift. And that put paid to my sporting activity. So it is only through the senior games that I started then to take athletics very serious again. So I was very happy to see the senior games started. My first games, 2010, and it was still very much a picnic type activity. Not all the athletes, I would say, took it very serious. They just came out and ran or participated in whatever event they had to do. But as time evolved, people got more serious about it. Because if you're not well prepared, you could injure yourself, and fairly seriously too. Back then when it first started, people would just turn up and run. Some people came in dresses, some came in gear that you would not associate with athletics, let's put it that way. People fell, and I believe they fell because they were not fit. And that was fun for the crowd, for the spectators. But for my mind, it was serious, because when you fall, you can injure yourself fairly seriously. People pull the muscles and so on. And so that fun type thing, although it was serious for the people getting injured, it was fun for the spectators. You know, people that just like to see people fall, I don't know why. But over the years, it took on a more serious picture. People started training, their gear changed, they then came dressed in game for athletics. And I would always remember Victor Young, who really dressed for the occasion, you know. Lots of people then followed and turned out in what we consider to be the real gear for athletics. People in the early days were running, I remember some people even ran barefooted. Some ran in just ordinary sneakers. If you look now, you will see everybody in track shoes. So it evolved, and it's a very serious situation now where people train. You train virtually all year, and you hardly see anybody pull up now or fall.
In lane number 3, that's Stephen Bowen you're looking at of St. James. Lane 4, Norman Jones of Christchurch. Lane number 5, Mark Norville of St. George. Lane 6, Burley Williams,
yes, that's Burley,
of St. Michael 1, the number 1. Lane 7, Lennox Ford of St. James. The record set by Norman Jones in 2010, a time of 14.10 seconds. These are the men, 65 to 69. Some go down in the blocks, some prefer to stand, all a matter of what you think is more comfortable, and also psychologically, some might think the blocks gives them a big advantage in terms of push and drive.
And there they go, Jones off to a good start. So it's Norville and Jones, Norville and Jones, it's all Norville. The rest can go home, it's Norville's time to shine. And he does.
My best year was 2016. I was the champion of the men overall. And that year, I set four records, the 50, the 1, 2, and 4. The 50 and the 1, you hardly get time to make any mistakes. I mean, if you make a mistake, yeah, that's it. If you don't get out the blocks on time, that's it. But the 2 you could recover, and the 4, of course, is a little longer. So I would say that planning the 4 is always the thing to do. The best strategist in a 4 will win it. It is a matter of your start, how you come down the back stretch, and how you finish. And if you make the mistake of expending too much energy in the back stretch, then you're not going to have enough energy to finish, unless you are super fit. But it's always best to plan that race well. You get out the first 100, you get up to a good speed, then you cruise the next 2, and you sprint the last one, and hope that you get there before the others. But that's the one that I really like to plan. The others, like I said, the two, you're starting virtually in a bend. And how you run that bend could determine what happens after that. So if you get a good run out of that bend, and when you come into the straight, then it's heading home. But like I said, all these races you have to plan. I mean, in a sprint, you must get out early, build up your speed, maintain it, and finish. So that's how we plan our races, really. The 50 is just about the same thing as the 100, but everything is done a lot quicker and shorter. The rivalry is great because as a person, as an individual, you want to do well, but you're also doing it for your club. And but yes, the camaraderie is there because you look forward to seeing some of those faces that you would have met over the years come back. And it's a sad occasion when you hear of the loss of one. And I always remember Boeing, who ran in my age grouping. He passed, and I certainly missed him because we always competed against each other. But yes, the camaraderie is there, and I know that many of the seniors really look forward to these games because it's an occasion in their whole life, and it's something that you prepare for. It's a build-up towards it, and you want it to happen. And of course, you want to share in the glory of winning with others.
The undeniable social impact of our National Senior Games placed squarely in perspective. Well, what are some of the key takeaways that Mark has considered during his senior athletic tenure?
I would say that overall, it encourages you and forces you to keep fit. And when I think of the members of our club, there's hardly any illness among those members. And if they're ill, they get over it very quickly, which means that there is something to keeping your body in good shape. And if we can encourage more and more seniors to do that, some of the money spent by government would be less at the clinics and the hospital, etc. And to me, that is the wider picture, the health of the country. And the more people that can participate in games, because if you don't have something to aim for, you're likely not to take aim at all. But if you have something to aim for, you're going to do what you can to achieve it. And in so doing, in preparing for games and so on, you are keeping your body out of illness, let's put it that way. So I think that's one of the most important things of these games, the fact that you are preparing for them and the fact that you are keeping healthy at the same time.
And so, let us regard the hosting of these games as motivation to stay active as we progress in age. As is the motto of our National Senior Games, live well, live long. This has been Golden Glory. I'm Miles Eversley. The series continues next week at the same time.